In today's video, I'm going to be discussing and showing a couple examples of crossing a street at a controlled intersection using a white cane. All right, let's go discuss it. Hey everyone, this is Matt. Welcome back to another Blind to Billionaire video, and today I'm going to be discussing crossing busy intersections as a blind person using a white cane. So as you probably know, if you've been watching this channel for a while now, I've been going through O&M sessions with my trainer for a little, well, almost 2 months now. We've been going through some sessions here and we've progressed on to crossing busy intersections. So that's what we've been working on, and a couple days ago, Corey actually joined me for my first session. We met my trainer in a different city, a little ways from where we live, and Corey drove me there and she actually tagged along for the training. So I wanted to discuss crossing these intersections. So I have a couple different clips I'm going to be sharing with you in this video of me actually navigating around and crossing these busy intersections. But that was actually, she was kind of hanging around and she was taping, different segments of the training session. But anyway, we thought this would be interesting just to give you an update on my O&M training and to show you how I've been taught how to do this. Not saying that this is the right way, but this is how my trainer has taught me to cross busy intersections. Again, now, if you've gone through O&M or you have your own skills, I would say rely on the skills that you have. Don't take my advice. This is just how I've been taught to do it. Of course, there's plenty of different ways that everybody can do basically the same task. So I'm just saying this is how I learned how to do it. So just like quick disclaimer, like don't take any advice from me on how to cross a street because I don't need to be liable for that. But anyway, I'm going to describe it real quick and then we'll show you the clip, the quick little clip that Corey made of me crossing one street. It's not a very busy street, but then we'll cross a busier street later on. So what are some of the techniques when crossing an intersection? So again, this is what my trainer taught me, but as I'm navigating down the sidewalk, one thing that I'm very in tune with is the flow of traffic on either side. Whatever side the traffic is on, I'm very in tune with the flow of traffic. And the reason for that is I need to be aware of when a potential intersection is approaching. So if I'm listening to the traffic as I navigate using my white cane on the sidewalk, if I hear that traffic just kind of flying by me, I can maybe assume like, okay, either there's no intersection near me or there's a green light. So I still need to be aware. But eventually, if it's a controlled intersection like a stoplight, that light will change at some point. Then I can realize like, hey, the traffic on my left, it's starting to slow. That must mean there's a stoplight coming up ahead. So what I do is when I walk along the sidewalk, like I said, I'm very in tune with the traffic on my left side because I'm walking parallel to the traffic. But as I'm paying attention to that traffic, I'm in tune with what's on my right as well. If there's a building on my right, well, obviously there couldn't be an intersection, right? But if that building all of a sudden ends and I don't hear like echolocation or I don't hear reverberation off the building from my cane hitting on the ground, then I realize, okay, the building's gone, there's potentially an intersection coming. And then from that point, I'm a little bit more hyper aware of like, hey, I need to be really aware right now because I can't just be marching out into an intersection. So when I approach an intersection and I know it's coming, basically I slow my speed. That's one thing that I do first because I typically walk relatively fast, I feel like I do anyway. Maybe it's slow for some people, but I feel like I walk pretty fast. And I need to slow my speed because if I continue at my same pace, all of a sudden, there I go marching right out into an intersection and I didn't, in case I miss it for some reason. So I slow my speed and then I continue, moving with my cane, doing the typical swipe that I do, the two tapping and swiping, sweeping, whatever. I mean, you can call it all kinds of things. But when I get to the intersection, the first thing I do is I like to try to find the curb cut. Now, if you're not sure what the curb cut is, it's basically where the curb just flattens out and meets the street. A lot of times in a lot of cities, all the curb cuts around here anyway, they have like those little braille bumps all over it. So not only can you identify it with all those bumps, but I mean, it's a really nice it's a really nice feature. I never realized it until doing this training how valuable those bumps are at the curb cut. So when I approach that intersection, I find that curb cut. And then what I do is I take my cane and I kind of feel along. I find the curb. So if I stand, at or near the curb cut, I take my cane and feel to my left and to my right so that I'm basically like perpendicular to the curb. So if the curb is directly right in front of me, I want to make sure that my toes are basically like straight up against it so that when I take off going to cross that intersection, I'm shooting straight across it and I'm not veering off to the left or right. And, because if I was veering to the left, I would be walking right out into the intersection. And if I was veering to the right, I could potentially walk right into a car that's waiting at that intersection. So I like to take my cane and feel around for the curb and get myself lined up. And then what I do is I stand on the far side of the curb cut from the traffic. So for example, if there's a parallel street on my left and there's a perpendicular street in front of me that I'm going to be crossing, what I do is I make sure that the parallel traffic to my left, I'm standing on the far side of the curb cut, if that makes sense. I hope that makes sense to some degree. Anyway, I want to be far away from the traffic, if that makes sense. So I like to stay on the far side of traffic. I don't want to be like right up against traffic. And then what is really important is pay attention to the flow of traffic at that time. So let's say it's a stoplight. And let's say the traffic on my left, the parallel traffic to me and the street that I'm going to be crossing. So traffic is on my left and I'm going to be crossing going parallel to the traffic on my left. I want to pay attention to that traffic. So all I'll do is I'll stand there with my cane. I'll kind of stand there with my cane kind of tight up against me at the time. And when that traffic is stopped at the light and all the cross traffic in front of me is going across, I wait for that traffic to stop so that I can hear like, okay, the flow of traffic in front of me has stopped. And now what I do is I kind of turn to my left with my ear. Well, I keep my body face straight, but I turn my head. I keep my cane, tucked up against me for a moment. And then basically what I wait for is I wait for the engines of the cars waiting at the light. You can kind of hear like the roar of the engines starting to, go when the light has turned green. And that's basically my cue, like, okay, it's time to go. Okay, I just want to throw one more thing out there. The intersections that we've been training at, they are not, so the stoplights, how they have like that beeping, that metronome sound? These stoplights that we've been training at do not have that. I would imagine going to those types of stoplights, and especially when it's safe to walk, the little guy says, walk, walk, walk. I would assume that that's a lot easier because you have the audible cueing of when you can walk. So anyway, I just wanted to say that because you might be thinking like it's so obvious when you should walk or not. But just to let you know, these intersections that we're training on do not have that like the beeping, the metronome, or the walk sign saying walk. So anyway, what I do is I turn my head, listen for the roar of that traffic. And as soon as that traffic starts to pick up, like the very first car starts going, basically that's my cue. I need to start walking at that point. So what I do is a second before I start walking, I take my cane and I whip it out into the street. I stick it out in the street. And the reason for that is if there's a car to my left that's going to turn right, they can take off the tip of my cane rather than me. So, and another thing too is if there's somebody going to be turning right at that intersection, they can see like, hey, that dude has a cane and it's sticking out in the street. Hopefully they catch that, and it gives me about a second. Well, I mean, literally it gives me like 1 second to basically figure out if a car is going to be coming or not. Now I have to say, for someone like me that can't see like the traffic and I'm going strictly off of what I can hear at the intersection, it's kind of scary. I would say it is scary relying on only my hearing to cross an intersection when there's a lot of other background noise. These intersections that we're crossing, there's a lot of traffic noise, and to hear the traffic on my left like roaring like that, getting ready to go, and all of a sudden they start driving and it's basically like, all right, whip my cane out and it's like, okay, here we go. It's kind of scary, but I guess over time, getting more comfortable with these situations, I think I'd probably become more comfortable with it. But I feel like one downfall to being more comfortable in these situations is maybe you let your guard down. So I feel like being extra cautious is probably a good thing in these situations. So then when it's time to walk, basically, like I said, my toes are at the edge of the curb. The curb cut is just to my left, where the little braille bumps are, the little tactile bumps are. When I hear the roar of the traffic, I whip my cane out into the street, and then basically I just start going. Just start walking. If there's a cane, not a cane, if there's a car in front of me that I'm going to be walking in front of, I pay a lot of attention to the sound of that engine. And the reason for that is if I can isolate and locate the sound of the engine, then I know, okay, I just need to stay to the left of that so that I don't walk right into the side of the car. But anyway, then you just walk straight, well, as straight as you possibly can, and then basically doing, your cane techniques to cross the street. That's what I do. And then when I get to the other side, basically I can either hit the curb cut and I can feel the bumps, like those tactile bumps, or if I'm a little bit off, I'll basically whack the side of the curb with my cane, and then I know I'm there. And then I can breathe again because I've made it across safely. All right, so I know that was a little bit of a long-winded answer, explanation of how to cross a street. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show a little clip of me crossing. It's not that busy street. This is more like a side street of me crossing parallel to a busy street. So we'll go in and I'll show you that little clip right now, and then we'll come back and I'll show you, I'll talk a little bit more, and then we'll show you another clip. All right, let's get into it. Hey, we're back. I hope you enjoyed that little video there. So like I said, that was just me crossing a little side street with a busy street on my left. So now I want to discuss and give you some of the nuances of crossing a busy street. So now that busy street that was on my left that I just walked parallel to, I'm going to be crossing that street in the next clip. But before I show you that, I want to talk a little bit about some of the details and the differences of crossing like a side street versus a busier street. Now you would think it's the same thing, which essentially it is, but there are a few different points that I want to just suggest and say like you should be aware of, just because I found that these are definitely some differences. Now one thing with the side street, and as you are walking along a street, if you hear the flow of traffic, you can get an idea of how wide that street is. Is it one lane? Is it two lanes? Going each direction. So maybe it's like a 4-lane road. Well, that would be good to know, because if you're going to cross that street, you want to think like, okay, approximately how many steps or how long is it going to take me to cross this street? Now, if it's a side street like I just crossed, it's just 2 lanes, one going each direction. So crossing that street, it shouldn't take me all that long or that many steps. But now if I'm going to cross the busier street that's twice as wide, I need to keep that in mind that, hey, it's going to take me twice as long, approximately twice as many steps to cross this street. So hey, like either pick up my pace or just be aware that if I'm halfway through, don't freak out, like there's still another 2 lanes to go. So that's something that I noticed was helpful to me, is just pay attention when you take off from that curb cut and you start crossing the street. Pay attention to approximately how far it is across that street, because eventually at some point, if you're navigating this terrain once again at some point in the future, you'll just want that like mental memory of like, hey, this street's about 25 steps across. Just like a little mental note like, hey, okay, I've made it safely across. So that's it. Another thing too that I noticed when crossing these busier streets, and what's really nice about this is sometimes there's a lot more foot traffic crossing those streets, and you can use those people as guides. Now, I'm not saying like have those people guide you. I mean, if you want, you could certainly do that. But again, full disclaimer, I mean, that's totally up to you. I'm not suggesting you should or shouldn't. But one of the first crossings that I had of the busy street, the very first day we were doing this, I mean, I literally walked up to the intersection, I was getting ready to cross, and there was a guy to my left, and I thought, perfect, this is easy. I'm just gonna pace him. I couldn't see him, but I mean, if you're somebody who's blind or visually impaired, you know how we can sense people. I mean, I don't have to describe it. You know what I'm talking about. But anyway, I could sense that guy to my left. So basically, I just paced the guy on my left, and it was like a perfect guide straight across. So it was awesome. I didn't talk to him. He didn't touch me. I didn't touch him. But I could just like sense his presence to my left. And I was like, sweet, that was awesome. It was easy. But that's one other thing you want to pay attention to, is a lot of times there's a lot more foot traffic crossing these busier streets, which is really nice that you can use as guides to help you cross. one other thing you should pay attention to is a lot of times in these busier 4-lane crossings, sometimes there's a median right down the middle. So sometimes you want to be aware of that. And occasionally they can stick out a little further than, they just like stick out sometimes. So just pay attention and be aware of the sound of the engines. So if you're crossing the street and you whack the curb with your cane and you think, oh, okay, great, I've made it. Well, then all of a sudden you listen and you think, wait, I hear engines in front of me. You could maybe think, okay, maybe this is the median instead. One interesting point about the median, as I was making one of the crossings, I don't know if this is the one in the film we're going to show here in a second, but here in Minnesota right now, it's winter, there's snow everywhere. So there was actually a bunch of snow in front of the median, so which actually made it stick out even further. So as I crossed in front of the median, it was actually kind of snowy and icy. And it's like I didn't trip on it, but I kind of like stumbled on it a little bit because I wasn't really aware of it being stuck way out like that so far. But anyway, those are a couple nuances of crossing busier intersections. And now one other final note is, if you're crossing that busy intersection and you're waiting for the traffic on your left from the side street to go forward so that you can, parallel that traffic, just be aware that sometimes that side traffic maybe isn't there like it would be on the busy street. So I actually had this instance where I stood at a light for, I think, maybe 3 full cycles of the stoplight going like red, green, waiting for a car to appear on my left so that I could pace it going straight across. And eventually a car came after I think the 3rd or 4th cycle. Eventually a car came on my left, and then it was time for me to go. But yeah, so just be aware of that too, that if you're crossing one of those side streets or a smaller street, or I should say the busier street with the side street on your left, just be aware that you might not get that guide. So maybe you could walk down to a different intersection and try to cross there where it's maybe a little bit busier. And for me initially, when I started approaching these busy intersections, I thought, oh, this is really scary. But what I found is actually the busier the intersection, almost the easier it is. And the reason for that is because you get all of that feedback from the traffic, and you can just parallel the traffic is basically what it is. It sounds a little bit counterintuitive, and there's definitely a lot of noise, and if you're paying attention with your ears and you're relying only on your ears, it can certainly be stressful in some situations. But I feel like just gaining those skills and being safe at all times, of course, I feel like that's just how you can do it. I definitely think everybody can absolutely do this by just learning the necessary skills and going through with the training and everything like that. But yeah, at first glance, I looked at these intersections and I thought, man, that's scary. There's traffic flying by here. But anyway, so like I did on the side street, basically when you're going to cross the busier street, just find the curb cut. I like to stand to the far side of the traffic on my left. And as soon as that parallel traffic on my left starts to go, first thing I like to do, make sure you whip your cane out into the street. The reason for that is if that car on your left decides to turn right, of course, these are in the United States here where the cars drive on the right side of the road. But anyway, if that car decides to turn right, at least he's taken out the tip of your cane rather than you. So just always whip that cane out there right away so people will see it. All right, anyway, again, this got long-winded, but let's jump into the clip of me crossing that busier street, and I'll catch you in just a minute on the other side.
Matt is preparing to cross the street, so that is what's happening right now. It's busy and there's a stoplight, so he's going to use his new skills, and his trainer is nearby to pull him out of the street if there's trouble. But I'm going to hang back so that I can video.
And we are back. I hope you enjoyed that little clip. Hopefully Corey narrated a little bit for you, for those of you who can't actually see it. But anyway, yeah, that was just me crossing a busier intersection. But yeah, anyway, that I think is about what I wanted to share on this video. But hey, before I get into the shout out for today, I just want to give you a real quick 15-second reminder. Get your videos in for the self-promo video project that we're doing once again this year. If you didn't see the video, I don't know, maybe like a week and a half ago, I produced a video saying, I think the title is something along the lines of 2020 Self-Promotional Project. Yeah, basically watch that video, get all the details of how you can do it, and we will be taking submissions up through the end of the day on January 31st. So be sure to get those videos in. And if you happen to love this white cane that I'm playing with here this whole time, I also made a video about this. This is a free white cane from NFB. I made a video about this probably about a month and a half ago. Go back and check it out, probably about 8 or 10 videos back. Check it out. I'll tell you exactly how to get a free white cane, exactly like this. That's where I got this one. It's a 65-inch cane. This is what I use during my training. I love it. It's really nice. You can get one every 6 months, free, totally free. Anyway, let's get into the shout out. So hey, I want to give a shout out to a longtime friend here on the channel, Blind Shooter. He's been an awesome friend. He's been really encouraging with the cane training. I thought this would be a really special shout out because he's really been there for me for the last, I don't even know how many months. Before I even thought about going, well, I mean, I've been thinking about going through training for a long time, but he's been very encouraging, giving me all these helpful hints and just basically saying, like, as soon as you go through the training, trust me, you will have the independence and freedom that you want. And it's been hard for me to believe that until I actually started the training, but yeah, Blind Shooter, he's just been an awesome friend and given me tons of encouragement over the last like year, probably at least a year that he's been around here. And he's gone through the training and basically he said you can go out and do anything. And again, before I started the training, I didn't believe it because I didn't know how it could happen. But now after I've been going through the training, you're right. I believe you. It is true. We can definitely do anything. And I can't believe how much independence I've gained as a result of just the 15 sessions I've had so far. So it's been amazing. So thanks for being such an awesome friend. And thanks again to all of you for watching this video. If you have any comments or questions or anything you want to discuss regarding anything about this video, or you have suggestions on video topics, or you want to see anything, you just want to talk for any reason, leave a comment down below and I will respond to you. Thanks for watching this and I'll catch you again sometime soon. Thanks again. See you soon. Bye now.
You can't wait to see me now, 'cause lately you've been feeling down.